This was a very interesting movie for a few reasons. See, I try to know as little as possible about a movie before watching it. And sometimes I end up watching a very different movie than I expected. And this is not what I expected on pretty much any level. But maybe the most interesting thing to me about this movie was the fact that I related so much to the main character. And my experience with this thing is obviously highly subjective. You might not relate at all, and that's fine, but to me this was almost eerie. So it's about this guy who goes with his friend to this house in, I believe, upstate New York. And they're basically going there for the weekend and there's gonna be a birthday party. And this guy only really knows one of the people there, the friend he's going with. So he's essentially gonna be spending the weekend cooped up in this house with strangers. Which sounds like a nightmare to me. And this guy seems pretty uncomfortable too. He's got his friend there and everyone's relatively nice and welcoming, but he just doesn't fit in. It's not his scene, you know? And it's pretty clear that he'd rather not be there. At this point I don't know where the story is going or what's actually going on, but I can fully relate to the situation. And the things that happen later on, I mean, could have been pulled right out of my life, like 10 years ago. And I'll also say this, the way this movie portrays drunk people and house parties is maybe the most accurate portrayal of that I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, it's spot on. It's not glorified, it's not taken to any extreme, it's just accurate. Which just made this thing that much more relatable and immersive to me personally. I mean, I can't overstate how real this thing felt to me. Every little detail was just so spot on. I've been in these situations, I've seen this stuff happen, I've experienced these things. And it's pretty clear that the people who made this obviously pulled a lot from real life too. And it really shows. That being said, story-wise, there's not that much going on here. The entire first half is pretty much just set up, and it's really in the second half where things get a little bit more interesting. Michael Cera shows up, and it actually starts being a little bit funny too, and not just weird and awkward. But still, you expect something to happen plot-wise, but it just kinda meanders. I mean, things happen all the time, much like in real life, but there's no conventional story here. With like a build-up and a big climax and a nice clean resolution. It's a lot less dramatic than that, while still being dramatic enough to be engaging. Now on a technical level, it's not my favorite movie. There's a lot of handheld shots and too many close-ups. And the lens they used created a lot of distortion around the edges of the image. So it's not a fantastic looking movie, but that also helps with the intimate feel of it. And the dialogue feels really loose and maybe even improvised, which could be an issue. But again, to me that just added to the authenticity of it all. And yeah, I just ended up liking this movie a lot, mainly because of how incredibly relatable it was. But I could see a lot of people not liking it for the same exact reasons. I mean, if the events and situations here aren't anything you can relate to, you might not get a whole lot out of it. So this definitely isn't a movie for everyone. Honestly, it's probably not for most people. But for me, personally, it was a pretty interesting experience. An astonishingly accurate portrayal of how a situation like this might actually play out in real life. But would I recommend it? Probably not. I'd say it's most likely safe to skip this one. So maybe go watch it, maybe don't. I'm not your dad.